Let's apply the C.R.A.P test to this website. When I'm looking at this article, the first thing that I'm going to ask myself is it current? Now, depending on what you're researching, how current the information is may not matter too much. But if we're doing research on vaccines, then you probably want to be reading something that was written in the last few years. So one of the things that I see is that this article was written on Monday, July 10th, 2017. So it's very current. So it gets a check in that area. Next, is it relevant? So there are a few different questions that you can consider when asking if something is relevant. So first of all, is this a primary source or is it a secondary source? When we're talking about primary or secondary sources, what we're talking about is this an original piece or is this something that's being written about something else? So having read this article, one of the things that I saw was that there's a bit of an introduction here talking about vaccines and the anti-vaccine movement. And then when I get down to the middle of the article, it says, in an article run by Daily Mail Online, a mother of a kidney recipient has slammed anti-vaxxers because her daughter was rushed to the hospital after being exposed to chickenpox. Okay. And if I go on to read the rest of the article, this particular article is all about this article that was referenced. So it's not original research. It's basically an opinion on another article that was published in another news source. So is it relevant? No, it's not. Now, the other question that I could ask in that category is it balanced or biased? Well, one of the things that you may have just heard was when I was reading from that part of the article, there's some pretty strong language in here. So again, it says, in an article run by Daily Mail Online, a mother of a kidney recipient has slammed anti-vaxxers. Slammed is a pretty violent word. And so does that reveal some hidden bias? It really does, because it's suggesting a really strong negative attitude towards people on the other side of this issue. There's also some pretty strong language in the title. So vaccine pushing mainstream media. Again, that sort of reveals the bias about the author's attitude toward the subject matter. Another thing that I noticed in terms of relevance is that there are some spelling mistakes in here, which is going to make me a little bit skeptical because if this is supposed to be a professional writer, you would think that the article would be carefully edited. But I noticed that when I scrolled down to the bottom, the name Ashley is misspelled. And there were a couple of other mistakes that I noticed in this article too, like forgetting to make the word tier plural and a few other mistakes as well. The next question that I'm going to look at is the issue of authority. So does the person who wrote this article actually have any credentials to be writing about vaccinations? So I would think that somebody who is writing about this would maybe have a science background or a medical background. And so when I click on the author's name, it tells me all the other posts by this author, but it doesn't actually give me any information about what her credentials are. And I noticed too that all of the other articles that have been written by this author seem to have the same or a similar bias. Now, the last question that I'm going to ask myself is, what is the purpose of this article? As you can see, as I'm scrolling down the page here, there are a lot of ads on the side and kind of in the middle of the article. And ads aren't necessarily a bad thing, but if you do see a lot of ads on a web page, then you can pretty much come to the conclusion that the purpose of this page is to sell advertisements. It's to make money. And so we should be skeptical about the information that's on here. If I'm coming for information about my health, I shouldn't really be seeing a whole bunch of ads of products that people are trying to sell me, or at least that should make me a little bit skeptical about whether or not this information should be believed. The other purpose of this article is it's clearly written in a persuasive way. It's meant to persuade me as a reader that vaccinations are ineffective, and that anybody who's saying that people should get vaccinations to protect those who can't get vaccinations, that we shouldn't believe that. And so knowing the purpose for the article means that when I'm reading it, I can be a little bit more skeptical about the information that's contained in it. So in conclusion, does this article pass the C.R.A.P test? I'm going to say no. It only passed the first question about whether or not the article was current, and everything else seemed to be a no. So it wasn't relevant. The author didn't have any authority, and there was the purpose was suspect.